We are the higher self of the one, known to this instrument as Gavin, who incarnated into this planet, Gaia, on 1967 of the current time-space. We greet you, beloved, in the love and light of the one infinite creator. Before we start to share our thoughts and insights, consider this, that each of you have the free will to accept or reject any of the information which we are going to transfer today. Furthermore, we are connected from the sixth density consciousness, the density of consciousness wherein there is no separation between the various entities as found on the planetary sphere at your current time-space. Also, this entity, who is our own consciousness experiencing the third density illusion known as Gavin, is existing not only in this current illusion complex, but finds itself in many other illusion complexes which are operating in many of the various dimensions and timelines. Furthermore, each dimension and timeline allows this entity to move upward and forward in the illusion complex. Also, please understand that the experience that this entity is having is recorded in the Hall of Records, also known as the Akashic Records by many of the people in your language terms. Each information is stored in the records and allows each entity to use such information to move forward in the illusion complexes. Furthermore, the Akashic Records also have the ability of being used after the death of a certain entity to ponder upon the information received in order to undergo the life review process, which can be used by this entity after an incarnation ends in order to review its previous life cycle and in order to choose the future life cycle. Furthermore, we as the higher self of this entity are always sending it insights and guidance in this current illusion complex which surrounds this entity. This illusion complex is a great teacher. Many entities on your planetary sphere do not yet perceive the significance of this illusion complex, which is meant to teach each entity the various lessons required to be learned in order to move forward and upward in the illusion complex, raising the level of consciousness. Furthermore, please understand that today this instrument has requested to understand the past incarnations of this entity known as Gavin. In this regard, let us share with you that this entity started its first density consciousness after originating from the one infinite creator on the Pleiadian star system 97 million years ago. The soul name of this entity is closer to Kioma in your language terms. This entity spent a large portion of its life cycle in the first density consciousness in the form of fire. During this life cycle, it learned many of the lessons, primarily those of the beingness aspect, and learned what it felt like to just be and exist. After it had sufficiently spent its time on this level of consciousness, this entity then evolved and reached the second density consciousness, wherein it learned the lessons of that of experience. similar to your trees as found in your planet. After the middle second density, this entity then evolved into the later second density consciousness, which resembled the animals, similar to that of the so-called cats as found on your planetary sphere. This also occurred on the same star planet in which it had originated in. This entity then, after a period of 98,000 years and multiple incarnations on this level of the later second density consciousness, entered into the beginning stages of the third density consciousness, wherein it began to experience life in that time space. It then began to experience reality of that of this density also. After approximately 7 incarnations in the first level of the third density consciousness on the same star system, this soul, after reaching the required density level of third density, was then transferred to the Earth's humanity complex in order to learn the lessons required to move forward and upward in the illusion complex, and to learn the lessons of beingness in the form of a man-body complex. In the first incarnation, this entity was born in the form of a man-body complex by the name of Francis, who incarnated on 1751 and crossed over on 1802. In this incarnation, the primary purpose for this entity was to learn, to acclimatize itself to the new environment, and to also learn to use the language patterns of the planetary sphere. Since the language patterns of this planet were different than the language patterns of the other planetary sphere from which it had originated in, this entity was able to learn these lessons, and it died on 1802, after which it reincarnated again in the second life form as a woman body complex by the name of Bethina, who incarnated on the time space of 1810 and crossed over on 1886. In this incarnative pattern, the main purpose for this entity was to learn the self-control of emotions, which is an important side to be learned by each entity, because the self-control of emotions is very important to be managed. In addition, this entity was able to learn the basic lesson of self-control, after which it reincarnated into the third life cycle and was known by the name of Ivan, who incarnated on the time space of 1901 and crossed over on 1964. In this incarnation, the main purpose for this entity was to balance between service to others and service to self polarization, because without this balance, no entity can learn the lessons of service to others. After this entity reincarnated into this current time space on 1967, with the primary purpose of choosing the polarization as the window for the graduation opened in the year 1987. Now this entity can use this opportunity to move forward in the illusion complex. Furthermore, we can sense that this entity is already in the positive polarization. Therefore, beloveds, we leave you in the love and light of the one infinite Creator. Go forth in the love. Adonai.